This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss the latest and greatest news in the world of sports. As always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
And we're back here with a chock-full day of news. Today is pretty much football, baseball, cut and dry. We have Thursday night, 2 games as a matter of fact today. One NFL game between the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the visiting Miami Dolphins. And that should be a color rush game, and I'm pretty excited because those Bengals jerseys are pretty cool looking.
The Bengals jerseys, yeah, I like those jerseys.
The Dolphins, on the other hand, not so much.
It's
weird looking orange. I remember they used to have those mid-2000s, and they just had the jersey, and they didn't look too bad. But
the Orange Crush, yeah, those weren't bad, yeah.
Now the whole orange looks bad.
Yeah.
Looks like an orange popsicle. And then tonight we have a top 10, not matchup, but at least one team in general. The number 6 Houston Cougars are hosting the Connecticut Huskies. UConn coming into Houston. Doesn't look good for them in terms of wins, but we will preview that game also. And we'll look at, just like we have, at least I have a little bit here and there for the last few episodes that I had on my own for sure. We'll be looking at the standings in baseball, and especially the wild card. Most of these divisions now officially have been clinched, I believe, if not all of them have been clinched.
I believe, yeah. I think last night was like the last division to be clinched.
So we'll be mainly looking at the wild card standings, in which the AL is a little more. I mean, honestly, they're both kind of close.
Yeah.
But the AL is a little more cut and dry in a sense. Well, I only say that because it seems nobody wants to win the NL.
Yeah, the NL is just basically the 3 teams that just like either all win or all lose, and they can't seem to separate each other.
They can't seem to just lock it down. But let's start with Thursday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the Bengals are hosting the Dolphins. It is going to be, of course, a home game for the Bengals, even though they will be wearing those white jerseys. One little snippet that I always find interesting, Andy Dalton is 4-9 with a 36 QBR in primetime games.
Yeah, he's never been that great of a quarterback, at least compared to other games during the year, either in primetime games or playoff games.
And, it's weird for me, too, to look at his stats this year in terms of his kind of slow start. He has 938 yards, only 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. In comparison, what has seemed like more of an anemic offense for the Dolphins, Ryan Tannehill only has about 40 yards less passing, 3 more touchdowns. Yes, he has 2 more interceptions, but, who's surprised by that? Mm-hmm. What's surprising to me is the leading rusher for the Dolphins currently is Ryan Tannehill.
Right, yeah.
On 12 carries, he has 54 yards, and he's got 1 touchdown. Now, of course, last week, Jeremy Hill had 2 touchdowns, and he had about 98, 99 yards. I forget. All I know is I was upset because I have him on my fantasy team. I was like, really, man, 2 more yards? But he's their leading rusher, 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. He got 2 of those, of course, like I said, last week.
Yeah.
A.J. Green, to nobody's surprise, is the leading receiver for the Bengals, 295 and 1 touchdown. And Jarvis Landry is doing pretty well. As a matter of fact, 2 more receptions, about 19 more yards roughly, 1 touchdown as well.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing, though, is the Bengals can play in this kind of slower start of offense than the Dolphins because their defense is better.
Right. And, your boy, being a Steeler fan,
yes.
Your boy Burfict, coming back,
yep.
just ready to just hit everybody, legally or illegally.
I'll give the guy credit. He is a very good player.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like the way he plays.
Right.
Necessarily. I don't like the way that he justifies some of the things he does on the field because you can't put it past. You can't ignore it. The guy, I don't know him. I can't speak to his character as a person. As a football player, he makes some stupid decisions.
Yeah, and he's kind of had that reputation since Arizona State. He's kind of had that reputation of really talented player, just every now and then will make a play that's, right on the line of legal, illegal, and either gets kicked out or it's just like, why did you do that?
He didn't even make the draft. His
right.
He didn't get drafted. He was a supplemental pick. He wasn't in the draft because I want to say, was it drug problems?
I don't know if it was that. I remember there was something around him that was just kind of like people were just like, yeah, we're just going to wait on this and just kind of, undrafted player. It's a lot, easier to sign him and you don't have to worry about any kind of things with him.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Now looking towards the Bengals and their defense and offense in general, Drake Kirkpatrick, one of their starting corners, is actually doubtful for this game. And Tyler Eifert, of course, isn't back yet from his ankle injury. In relation, the Dolphins are going to be without their starting center, Mike Pouncey, who, of course, I know a decent amount about, seeing as his twin plays for the Steelers, like you were saying.
Right.
Which is big for them, and the big anchor of their offensive line. A lot of what they do goes through him. Questionable are two of their main defensive players. Jason Jones, a defensive end, he's questionable, and Rashad Jones, their all-star safety, is questionable. Now I imagine he probably is going to play. Mm-hmm. And then Devontae Parker is questionable as well. Jelani Jenkins, unfortunately, linebacker, is doubtful. All of those were announced yesterday. This is going to be an interesting game. It really is. I mean, they are currently outscoring the Bengals points per game, 21.3 to 18.7. And they're allowing less points per game as well, 22.3 compared to 25 even. They're not far off of yards passing per game, and they're 1 yard higher in yards rushing per game. But... and I know you're a Dolphins fan.
Right.
Do you go into this game with any, they have the same records? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They're both pretty similar teams at this point, except for the Dolphins just happen to be, perennially kind of last few years not really going anywhere, and the Bengals have, of course, been in the playoffs. Do you see them winning this game?
So, yes, the records are even, and that's fine, and that's, a helpful at least thing to make you feel like, oh, okay, maybe they can win. It's in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Short week. Those tend to have to work out for the team that's home. Worked out last week for New England. Those kind of games where you're probably not ready to play because you have to just instead of having the whole week to prepare, you have 3 days and it's just all right, have fun, go out there. Like you said, Tannehill's the leading rusher on the team, 54 yards. Mm-hmm. Arian Foster's out. The center's out.
Yeah,
the center hasn't played.
Sure.
Pouncey hasn't played all year. Mm-hmm. And the reports maybe he can play week 1. Well, it's week 4. He's still not there. So he's hurt. Whatever's wrong with him, he's had that, and it's not getting any better, or at least, it's still pretty bad.
I've heard that for my Pouncey for years.
Yeah.
Different times.
So, the whole team is kind of erratic. We thought the running back situation was good for Miami when we went into the year. You got Arian Foster, who, yes, is a little bit older. But, maybe he can get something going. In week 1, he was fine. Rushing-wise, he wasn't
good.
The best. But he got receiving yards, kind of all-around game. He did well. So you thought, okay, maybe the running back situation will be fine. You took enough offensive linemen, as Dolphins did over the last few years, be it Pouncey or Tunsil this year. They've had these linemen, but their line has never been that good. You have the whole situation with Incognito. The team has kind of just been kind of erratic the whole time. And now, Tannehill's okay.
Yeah.
He's
always been okay.
He's
though.
okay. He's not great. He's worse than Dalton.
Yeah, he's worse than Dalton.
Because Dalton has the cheat code, right? He's got AJ Green, which is basically just I'm going to throw it up to you.
And when Eifert's out, the same thing.
Yeah. So, Tannehill's fine. The running back situation isn't great. So, leaning that it's a short week, I would absolutely probably take the Bengals, everything considered, because, Dalton understands I'm going to throw it to AJ Green. That works as well as anything else. Mm-hmm. With Eifert out, you kind of have to. Yeah, they may double team him or whatever. That's fine. But, I would, if I had to lean one way, being a Dolphins fan, that's fine. I would probably just say the Bengals because of the short week, and I trust their defense more than I would trust the Dolphins' defense against A.J. Green and Dalton.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, the Dolphins have pieces on their defense, whether it is Rashad Jones, whether it is Ndamukong Suh. But And also, I mean, they're not far off in terms of total defense either, other than total yards allowed. Mm-hmm. Passing yardage is pretty close. Rushing yardage is pretty close. But the Bengals' defense is better. Mm-hmm. They have veterans in the secondary, which I think eventually is going to come back to bite them because they've been drafting these young guys that haven't necessarily panned out. Mm-hmm. Drake Kirkpatrick was supposed to be, an all-world first-round corner, and he hasn't really become much in comparison to that. They have Pac-Man Jones, who's getting up there in age. They just lost a good safety in Reggie Nelson last year. Some of these guys are going to be a little old, and they're going to face the problem I feel like the Steelers faced a few years ago, where they had this big turnover in the defense because there was a lot of veterans. You have obviously a good linebacking core, perfect. You have Ray, you have Ray Maluga, double Ray right there. And then, of course, the line is give Geno Atkins and Dominic Pecco and good young players. So, I mean, you have to give it to the Bengals in terms of a defense, I think, it's the Bengals they're playing at home. This is a game they need to win after losing back-to-back tough ones against AFC playoff contenders as well, the Steelers and the Broncos. And this is a game they should win in that sense, and that's just comparing it to, what they've looked like in the past, these two teams, especially this season. I think Dalton's a better quarterback than Tannehill. They're very similar. I think Dalton has a better arm in terms of touch and accuracy. I think.
Yeah, that was the one problem with Tannehill forever was he would have someone like a Mike Wallace or someone like that he just couldn't connect to. He would just throw it out there and you overthrow it, underthrow it. It was never something that could work. And you've seen with Dalton enough times, there's A.J. Green, 30 yards, 50 yards, gone.
He's always been pretty accurate. And I would say they probably have similarly strong arms. Neither of them have cannons, but they're both pretty similar in terms of strength. And, they have a better running back position. You have Giovanni Bernard and you have Jeremy Hill, who were 1 and 2 in terms of rounds. Not on the same draft, but they were both high draft picks for them. So, I'm going to give it to the Bengals in this one, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The odd thing, though, I looked up Ryan Tannehill. So, you look up, okay, so it's in Cincinnati, and you kind of look up, all right, so, road, home splits, everything else like that for a quarterback. How does he do with everything like that? You look at last year, because there's only been 3 games this year. You shouldn't really do home and away for this year.
Yeah.
Last year, he's actually a more accurate passer. He's 64.3% completion percentage compared to 59 at home. Maybe that means he just has to try a little bit harder when he's on the road. He doesn't have to rely so much on home. Okay, I have to focus. I have to do this. I have to da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. But, he throws from more yards away and he's better completion percentage. So it's maybe he's just a little bit more accurate, a little bit more, okay, I need to focus on this. Jarvis Landry's a person who he's not going to get you a 50-yard bomb. He's just going to get a lot of Wes Welkery kind of dink and dunk kind of passes, which they've done for. Yeah,
he'll take a slant and turn it into 55 yards.
Right, yeah.
I think also, playing in what is now Hard Rock Stadium, I think playing in at home in Miami is hard anyways. It's so hot and it's humid. And
well, now they have something in Hard Rock where it's basically a lot of it's covered.
Yeah, it's a weird half shade.
Yeah, it covers, I don't know the exact number, but I want to say something 80,
it covers 85%.
The stadium. It covers a lot of for the fans, so they're not just getting roasted in 105-degree temperature
Yeah, but it does help the players.
Right. So, Miami's, it's never been necessarily a Seattle or Kansas City kind of home field, advantage.
No, I think an advantage in the sense of it's hot, man.
Right.
It's hot. But, yeah, I think we're going to be in agreement on this, and we're going Bengals, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry I know it pains you, but going Bengals.
It's fine. You just kind of accept it at a certain point. And you're okay, that's fine. So just, you look on basically to the next week. It's okay, so this whole Cincinnati thing, that didn't exactly work out. Who do you got next week? The Titans. Okay, the Titans. That's that'll hopefully be better.
Yeah, you're looking ahead.
Right.
You're Bill Belichicking it. All right, well, let's take our first break. We'll come back. We're going to look at some MLB standings as we head into the final weekend of baseball, and we will talk wild card as well. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. We'll be looking at some baseball now. And yes, I do believe that every team now has, or at least every division now has been clinched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every division has been clinched. The Cubs have clinched the best record for the National League, and it looks like Texas with 94 wins got a 2-game or 1.5 game lead over the Red Sox right now. They may clinch the best record in the American League.
Yeah, so we're looking at the Red Sox having clinched the AL East, the Cleveland Indians having clinched the AL Central. And of course, as you said, the best record in the AL belonging to, it looks like, the clincher of the AL West, and that is the Texas Rangers at 94-65. Now moving to the National League, and we have the Washington Redskins having clinched the East. I'm sorry, Redskins. Sorry, we're talking football. The Washington Nationals having clinched the East at 92-66. Easily the best record in baseball at 101-57 is the Chicago Cubs, who clinched the Central a long time ago, 19 games above the St. Louis Cardinals.
God.
Yeah, that's insane. And then in the West, having clinched 2 days ago, the Los Angeles Dodgers, 7 games over the San Francisco Giants. Now, those have been cut and dry for a little while now.
Right.
We see 5 games, 6 games, 9.5, 7.5, 19, and 7.
Right.
It wasn't really a battle to the, division wins. Where the battle lies is in the wild card. Now we have the American League, and currently the 2 spots in the wild card game will be held by the Toronto Blue Jays, who would be hosting the Baltimore Orioles. The Detroit Tigers are 1 game back, and the Seattle Mariners are 2. So realistically, they are still in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look at, as I pull these up real quick, the next opponents for some of these teams. I know the Toronto Blue Jays currently are playing the Orioles directly. They won the first game and lost last night, and they have a game tonight. Well, this afternoon, I guess you could say. So that is directly, in correlation to the wild card spot. If they lose, it'll be even for those first 2 spots.
Right.
Now.
And with the Tigers, they're playing the Indians right now, and then they play the Braves.
Exactly.
So they get, after the cool Cleveland, they get a kind of easy last 3 games against the Braves. The Braves, all they have is Freddie Freeman getting a 30-game hitting streak. So at this point, the Braves are just kind of riding it out. They don't have that, they don't have anything to play for. They're not even going to be in Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, next year. So
very true. And, they're currently in the midst, like you said, of a 4-game series with the Indians. They're actually getting ready to start baseball in about 2.5 hours. Excuse me. Allergies indeed. All right. But yeah, so this is going to be a tricky finish, I think, more so in the AL in terms of, not tricky, because I think the NL, I'll get to why I think that's trickier in a minute, but because I think that it's weird because the top 2 teams are playing one another.
Right.
So no matter what, one of those teams is going to have a spot. And if anything, their best, worst in a sense, case scenario is, say the Orioles win tonight. That's even, right?
Yeah.
So that's 1 team even, 2 teams even, and then Detroit wins. That could be a 3-way tie.
Yeah.
Right there, and then they'd have to go into tiebreakers and so on and so forth across the season as to who would get those 2 spots. I imagine, I forget what it goes. I think it goes into regular season record between the teams. And then I can't pull that up right now.
Right. So then the Orioles, they got the series against the Blue Jays. Orioles will play the Yankees. The Blue Jays will play the Red Sox.
Yeah, and then Seattle Mariners. True, yes. And then Seattle Mariners, if you want to include them as well, like I said, they are only 2 games back. It's crazy to think that they are out of it at all, but they are 2 games back, and they have a series with the A's starting currently, and A's have played well at times this year, but they are 26.5 games back in the AL West. So winnable, I would say, for the Seattle Mariners, who are currently, of course, 2nd place. Yeah,
you have at least the potential of the 4 teams making it even, making it interesting over the last 4 games, 3 games, depending on what your record is for the last week, last few games of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I look at the National League, and you only have realistically 3 teams there. The Mets, the Giants, and the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the Marlins, so much has gone on in the past few weeks.
Right.
5 games, and plus, as well as the Pirates, I just find that kind of that's not going to happen. I think there's only 5 games left, or 4.
Yeah, there's only 4 games, so they're 78 and 80, so there's only 4 games. Yeah, so
they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So currently the Mets are a game and a half up on the Giants, and they have the first wild card spot at 85-74. The Giants lost last night to the Rockies 2-0, although Jeff Samardzija had 10 strikeouts through 5 innings. Just couldn't get any offense going, and that has been the problem for them all season since not all season, but since the All-Star break. And then the Cardinals, they played last night as well. They are currently 1 game back from that second wild card spot at 82-76. The Cardinals lost last night to the Reds 2-1. They have a game to finish their 4-game stretch tonight and this afternoon as well. And the Giants, like I said, of course, are finishing their 3-game series. Yeah, 3-game series against the Rockies tonight as well. Last game to get going tonight. They have Cueto going. He is coming off of a groin injury. But this is just a wacky thing. I think the reason why I think this is a weirder finish is you can have 4 teams realistically win the AL National. The AL wild card.
Yeah.
The National League, you have 3 teams that just don't want to win it. The Giants seem to not want to, and at least can't close. The Cardinals weirdly can't win these games right now.
Yeah.
And then the Mets. Now the Giants enter a 3-game series starting tomorrow. I would know I'm going to them. Against the Dodgers at home in San Francisco, the last 3 games of the year. And that's going to be a tough series for them. The Dodgers, of course, not only is it a rivalry game series, the Dodgers don't really have anything else to play for other than home field advantage, so they're going to want to win those games. And why not keep a division rival out of the playoffs while you're at it in their minds?
Exactly.
So currently we have the Cardinals have 1 more game, like I said, against the Cincinnati Reds tonight, and then they start a home series to finish the year off against Pittsburgh.
Right.
Pittsburgh, again, they've won games, they've lost games. They've really been around all year, but they've struggled to really close it down, you know what I mean?
Yeah, same thing with the Marlins. They're 78-80, so they've had some, potentially, happy starts, happy games, and everything else like that, but then they just kind of regress back to the pack. Never been able to kind of get anything started.
Yep.
But yeah, so like what you're talking about with the Dodgers, how they could potentially get a division rival out.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Pirates. You could potentially get the Cardinals out. Red Sox and Yankees both have a chance, to knock their division rivals out in Baltimore and Toronto. So, everything's basically going to come down to division rivalries at the end of the year. They're going to be able to kind of figure out how that's all going to play out. Like you said, the Mets, they have a 1.5 game lead. It looks like they're probably in because they're 2.5 above the Cardinals, unless the Mets just totally fall on their face. It looks like they'll probably get into the division or into the wild card.
Yeah, and then they open up a 3-game series tomorrow against their division rival, Philadelphia.
Right, and Philly's been a kind of a dumpster fire all year. Ryan Howard doesn't look good at all. They basically just play him every now and then just because they owe him $25 million, some ridiculous amount of money.
Like that.
It's we kind of have to pay you. Let's play you just a little bit.
But, along those lines.
Yeah, so now you got the Cardinals who just very un-Cardinals-like season, 82-76. Usually they do a little bit better than that, but they struggled the whole year. They're a game back with 4 to play. So it looks like it's going to be the Mets, and if the Giants can win 2 out of 3, they'll probably win the division or win the wild card.
Yeah, currently the Mets, all they have to do is win 2 games, and then they're in no matter what.
Right.
So as long as they win at least 2 of their last 3 games, they're good.
Yeah.
The Giants, as long as they win more games than the Cardinals do.
Yeah, they control. Yeah, they basically control.
They control it all.
If they win the last all 3 games basically of that series, if they
pretty much as long as they win 1 more than the Cardinals do.
Exactly.
If the Cardinals go 3 for 3 in theirs, then they have to. Otherwise, it'll be a playoff game. If they win 1, the Giants need to win 2, or if they win 1, the Giants need to win 1. They need to either win as many or more than the Cardinals in this one, because otherwise they'll be looking at a playoff game, a 1-game playoff to enter a 1-game playoff.
Right.
But
and assuming this all kind of shakes out, assuming it's the Mets and the Giants, assuming all this kind of just plays out and no team really jumps the other one, you'll have the Mets who at one point had good starters, whether it was Harvey or Matz, who both now are gone.
Yeah.
You still got Bartolo Colon, who just he throws what he throws. He's got what he's got. He doesn't care.
He's just whatever,
Yeah, I'm just
it's Bartolo.
Right, yeah. One of my favorite players. I love him so much. He is just the most clumsy-looking baseball player. But he
looks like a potato.
A little bit. But, you'd have them. I think if you're a Giants fan, yes, they have been basically awful since the All-Star break.
Yeah, well, the bullpen has been awful.
Right.
And they can't score runs.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
But
that's the name of the game right there.
Yeah, you can have as good a starter as you want, but if your bullpen comes in and just gives up 3 runs, that doesn't help anything.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming it plays out this way, right? Assuming it's the Mets and the Giants, the one good thing for Giants fans, even though, like I said, the bullpen's terrible, that one game playoff, you have Madison Bumgarner.
Mm-hmm.
We saw 2 years ago, you give him the ball, you feel very good about your odds.
Yeah, but at the same time, Bumgarner has led the league this year and in like the last 4 years in complete game losses. You know, if the Giants go from scoring 12 runs not last night, but the night before, to last night losing to a Rockies team, they got 5 hits.
Right.
The Colorado only had 9, but they made them count. You know, they got 2 runs out of it.
Yeah, and
Samardzija literally pitched lights out in a sense, and they lost.
Right.
And it's happened with Bumgarner this year. It's happened like I want to say 3 times he's pitched almost a complete game or a complete game, and I know for sure twice he lost complete games.
Well, even the game he didn't have a complete game. The game where he almost fought Yasiel Puig, he was 7 innings, went really well, and the bullpen came in the 9th inning, and just that all blew up.
I don't think he ever wants to fight him.
I
think they just like to yell at one another.
I mean, they, you know,
it annoys me, but
I mean, yeah, like I'm a Giants fan, and at the same time, you look at him, and it's just like, why are you that mad? Like, what? Like, I don't know what you.
I think they just like to argue with each other.
I guess
they're weird fellas. I think it's just it's a alpha thing.
Probably, yeah.
Just an alpha thing. I don't know. It'd be an interesting fight. They're both gigantic.
I wouldn't want any of Yasiel Puig's problems, but also Bumgarner seems like he's got that country strength.
He's country strong. Yasiel's like strong. He's like freak strong. So I mean, I wouldn't want to see it in general. Might like.
You see, the Puig also ran away
crazy
from like some pretty bad dudes out in Cuba. So like, he's not afraid of anybody.
Well, I mean, you gotta. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
whole nother story, man. Oh, talking Cuba. All right, let's take our last break here, and we'll come back and we'll talk some college football.
Yep.
Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we'll take a last break, come back, and talk football. Sorry, I'm just moving all around. Right back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. All right, so we started off talking about Thursday Night Football. We talked about the Dolphins playing the Bengals. We talked a little bit about baseball, the wild card standings, and everything else like that. We will get into the Houston Cougars and the UCONN Huskies. However, there's one more thing in sports. Not football. He used to be a football player. Now he decided he wants to play baseball. We are talking about Tim Tebow.
Otherwise known on the show as Tim T-Ball.
T-Ball.
Yeah, just real quick, he hit a home run on the first pitch of his first organized game since a state semifinal during his junior year of high school.
Yes.
He looked quite stiff.
Yes, that was a pretty good way to describe it.
He sprinted out of the box.
Just full Eckstein, just right out of the box.
Literally as if he was running his 40.
Yeah.
And then he realized it was a home run. But yeah, he hit it opposite field too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, opposite field, very first pitch. Yeah, he is...
269 people watched it.
269?
That's how many people were there.
Okay, that's not the best, but it's single A. So it's you're not going to get a lot of people there.
It's instructional league. It's hard.
Even instructional league. Yeah, it's not even single. Yeah, so it's. I imagine if he starts to do anything, there's going to be a lot more people at his games. He's going to be that thing like if you have like really good players who get hurt, like when Roger Clemens was trying to come back that one time, he was having a lot of people come to his games just because of the kind of circus, like, oh, let's watch him because he's great kind of player. To people, it's not great, but you go with anything he does, it becomes a big story. I mean, even ESPN, like all it has to do is just anything Tebow, and they'll just immediately go right to it.
Yeah, and I think what's most interesting about this too is The pitcher's name is John Kilikowski. He was drafted this year by the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Big dude, 6'5". He said in the first inning, a lot of guys just take their first pitch. He said, and you get out there, you kind of get ahead of the count. So I had some things I wanted to work on because it's instructional, and that's what you do. He said, so I just went in there and threw a fastball, and he hit it out. So I'm sitting here like, what happens, Tebow, if somebody throws you a first pitch slider?
So you're thinking he's going to be like the Pedro Serrano?
He's just going to
he's going to be able to crush the home runs, then he throws a curveball, he can't hit it. He can't
hit a curve, yeah. He's going to have to get a little thing in his locker. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that he was looking fastball and he got fastball.
Right.
So far from what I've seen, he's not great at hitting off speed.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Off speed pitches, that's the thing with a lot of people. You can hit a fastball because it's basically batting practice.
It's straight, yeah. You just got to time it.
It's going to be great.
We'll see how many home runs Tim Tebow has.
I'm all about the chaos of this whole thing, just to see if he can do anything at all. Now, he might have 30 more at-bats and strike out 28 of those 30 at-bats. But, yeah, I'm all about the just chaos factor of Tebow doing anything at all good.
Yeah, he's okay, I guess. All right, moving to college football.
Right.
That is the Houston Cougars, the number 6 team in the nation, currently undefeated. Doesn't look like that's going to change tonight, hosting the Connecticut Huskers. UConn coming in at 2-2. I think this is pretty cut and dry. ESPN has it at 95.6% in favor of Houston. Obviously, Greg Ward Jr. playing very well, 936 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. He has 2 interceptions. He missed a game, of course, in week 2, so those numbers are a little skewed, a little lower. The running back is playing great, 225 yards on 48 carries. Their receiver, 21 receptions, 280. That is belonging to Bonner. And Thomas is the leading receiver for the UConn Huskies, he actually is more impressive. 4 receptions, 388. But Bonner and Thomas, both great pieces in that offense. Points per game, of course, though, much different. 21.3 for UConn, 44.8 for Houston.
Right.
And points allowed per game, a little different. We have 22.5 for UConn. Of course, that is higher than their average. So, of course, that might be why they are 2-2.
Yeah.
And we have a whopping 10.5 points allowed per game by Houston. Houston, of course, has faced pretty good teams this year. To start off, they faced Oklahoma when they were ranked number 3, and they handled them fine. Mm-hmm. They played Lamar, again, without Greg Ward Jr., and they won 42-0. They played Cincinnati the following week when he returned. That's 40-16. And they played a little school called Texas State last week, 64-3. Mm-hmm. They have not scored lower than 40 points in any of their last 3 games, and of course 33 being their first against a good team, so I'm not surprised that happened. Connecticut, on the other hand, again, 2-2, not playing great football. They're more so known for basketball as a school. They won the first game against Maine. They lost against Navy in a close game. They lost to Virginia in a close, they beat Virginia in a close game as well, 13-10. And they lost another close game to Syracuse. It looks like they are in these games at least. 21-24 they win, 28-24 they lose, 13-10 they win, 31-24 they lose. I think they can keep up this trend of win-loss, win-loss, win-loss.
I do not think they keep that up. You talked about with the Houston Cougars how they don't score less than 40 points. UConn hasn't scored 30 points. That's a problem.
UConn has barely scored the amount of points that they have already.
Yeah.
They're barely getting there. UConn has scored 28. That's it. That's the highest they have.
So, yeah.
Or 24.
24. They scored 24 3 times. Maine, Navy, and Syracuse.
One happened to be away.
So they got that 24. 24 is going to be fine. Now they may lose 64-24.
As long as if they get that 25, maybe they'd be talking another win, okay?
I mean, like it's a division, or not division game, but it's like a conference game, both of them, American standings. So UConn, they're even behind Cincinnati. Like, this is one of those games where it's like, okay, division, conference game, that's fine. Everything else, you got to play all these games. All Houston's doing, the only thing that Houston cares about, the whole point of their whole season, the only thing that really matters at all to them is a game a little bit later on in the year when they go and face Louisville.
Yeah, I mean,
that's it.
Currently they have what look like winnable games in all their games up until November 17th. They have UConn this week, Navy next week, Tulsa, SMU, UCF, and
Tulane,
excuse me. I was reading that again. And Tulane. Thank you. Until facing off against Louisville, who, if they keep this up, it's going to be a number 3, arguably maybe a number 5 matchup because Louisville is taking on Clemson this week. If they can beat them, I think, and Houston wins, I think they leapfrog them in the standings, in the polls. But I think this is pretty cut and dry. I think, you said they're behind Cincinnati, UConn, and Cincinnati lost 40-16 to Houston. So I think Houston has this one. I want to say it's another blowout for Houston. I think they can score at least 40 points again in this game. They've literally only not done that once, and that's against Oklahoma, who, even though they did lose, they were a good team, and they are still a good team. They just had a bad few weeks in terms of how they've been playing.
Yeah, so you look at Cincinnati, the team that's a little bit better than UConn right now. They beat them 40-16. You said, UConn scores about 24 points or so on a good day, so maybe around the same thing, probably around 45-20 or something like that, something where, it's not, an absolutely beat down like Texas State where they beat them 64-3 or Lamar.
Yeah, it won't quite be that.
It is an FBS school, so it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, we can, win this game, and all they want to do at this point is just like win good enough so that way they can stay in the top 5. Because you're not going to, assuming everybody wins out and stuff like that, you're not going to leapfrog Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan.
No, yeah. They're really hoping Clemson loses.
Right. If Clemson can lose, then you'll be in that top 5, and you just basically have to beat Louisville. And if that's the case, maybe you're in that top 4. Like I said, Michigan's going to play Ohio State, so one of those
teams will
lose. And if you can do that, as long as Houston wins out at this point, or Louisville, whoever wins out, if they win out between the two, they're going to be in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, currently Louisville is.
Right.
And Louisville has, we'll talk about that probably sometime next week on Monday when we recap college football.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I think you're right. Houston's in that spot, And
you do have the potential matchup, like I said, with Houston, assuming they beat UConn, Navy, Tulsa, all that kind of stuff like that. Against Louisville, Greg Ward Jr., he's, someone who's absolutely in the Heisman contention.
So is Lamar Jackson.
Jackson. That's basically going to be like whoever wins that game will get really high recognition for the Heisman. You also got, other people who have receiving votes, be it Christian McCaffrey or someone like that. Mm-hmm. But assuming Lamar Jackson and Greg Ward Jr. are still, doing what they're doing, that's basically going to be the winner of this game. We give you the Heisman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. It's gonna be close, and then that very much could be a Heisman on Heisman kind of game. Yeah.
Lamar Jackson has 12 rushing touchdowns.
Lamar Jackson is not in this world.
He is insane. Like he has 13 passing touchdowns and 12 rushing touchdowns. Like, he is going like full Tim Tebow, Michael Vick.
He's going video game numbers.
He is, yes.
That's how I play when I used to play in NCAA. Like
that's Michael Vick circa, what was it, Madden, like 04, 05?
Yeah.
Where you just do the bootleg around and no one touches him?
Because nobody can catch him.
Right.
Pretty much. Yeah, you can't, and you can't even make a player in Madden that reacts the same way now.
Nope.
Oh, food trucks here.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, you can't even make a player like 99 speed, 99 throw power, all that. You can't make them and have them react the same way. You can't bootleg and have them sprint. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's say Houston has this one pretty handled.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I love it. All right, well, I'm sure you'll be back tomorrow.
Yes, I will.
And I'm sure you guys will discuss this game, and they'll discuss the Thursday night game.
Yep.
And I'm sure if Ben's feeling saucy, you guys might take a look at the baseball standings as well, along with I know Ben likes to. Ben's a big soccer guy, so he might look at the UEFA Champions League games yesterday and the day before, and update on those scores as well, just because that is big going on right now, the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, I'll be back on Monday. You won't be, but I'll be back Monday with Ben. You will be back tomorrow with Ben.
With Ben and Jeremiah.
And Jeremiah as well. I don't know if I always forget if he does your sports shows or not on Fridays. But Jeremiah and I, of course, have football along with Anthony here, and we're getting ready to record that. But until then, like I said, we're out for the day. So I will see you on Monday. Of course, Anthony will be back tomorrow. Until then, you can find us on gsmcpodcast.com, where you can find all the shows in our portfolio, all the podcasts that differ from lifestyle to sports to technology to television. You can find us on Facebook as well at GSMC Podcast Network. And if you search the GSMC Sports Podcast, you can find us individually there. iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. You can find and download all of our shows, and as well as the player on the website, gsmcpodcast.com. And you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at GSMC_sports and YouTube at the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening. As always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
And we will see you guys later. Have a good one.